So thanks everyone that's joined, and welcome to everyone that's just joining for this call today. My name's Jack Painter, as it says on screen. I'm Head of Products and Services Delivery at WISE, focusing on diversity and inclusion. So our team, the Products and Services team, are responsible for providing products and services to support businesses on their journey to gender parity in STEM and support an inclusive workplace culture for all. We're kind of focused on standard training and support measures and our 10 steps framework for gender parity in STEM, which I'm going to talk a little bit more on later in the session. Next slide, please, family. So we'll just go through some quick housekeeping. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared and available after the event. So by joining the webinar, you're consenting to being recorded. Delegate sound and video is restricted during the presentations, but when we get to the Q&A section of the session, it'll be enabled, so you can either pop your questions in the chat, or if you're feeling brave, you can put your hand up and ask a question directly. As I just mentioned, if you have any practical questions regarding sound or video, please pop them in the chat, and either Charbonnet or Hannah will support. As I said, you can ask written questions for the speakers using the chat function on Teams throughout the session, and we'll come to them during the Q&A section. So if you ask a question, we don't come to it straight away, it's because we'll be addressing it in the Q&A. As I said, sound and video will be unlocked for that Q&A. And also, you're welcome to use the chat function to share comments as well, and the reactions are there too if you want to get involved that way as well. So look at today's agenda. I'm going to start off with a quick overview of the business case for diversity in STEM, focusing specifically on gender diversity. Air Products are then going to share a talk looking at their EDI journey. We've then got Gary from Cadent, who's going to talk about how allyship supports wider EDI goals. We've then got 3 Slido facilitated questions, so it'll be a chance for you all as an audience to get involved and have your say on some of the topics that we spoke about before we move into a Q&A session where, as I mentioned, we'll pick up those questions that might be in the chat. We'll then move into the final section of the session where we'll look at how WISE and LoWEG can support EDI within organisations, and we'll be wrapping up at 11:30 this morning. So to get started, you don't need to put your hand up, and there's no Slido for this. It's just getting you thinking. I want you to think about the question on screen, and that is, true or false? Science education has been compulsory for both boys and girls in the UK since 1971. And Charbonnet can hopefully reveal the answer. Is false. Science education in the UK wasn't made compulsory for girls and boys until the Education Reform Act in 1988, and until that point, girls were encouraged more in home economics and childcare than science. A QA survey into the STEM workforce published in 2019 highlighted that this inequality in education is ongoing, and it found that more than half of young women would be interested in a career in STEM, but 78% of those respondents were discouraged by gender inequality. There was also research from UK scale-up Talent Works that corroborated this inequality and demonstrated how it persists right through education to finding first roles in STEM. When starting their careers, 31% of young female professionals found it hard to find their first role, compared to only 21% of men. Next slide, please, Charbonnet. This inequality in STEM education through school and university that persists today contributes to what's known as the leaky talent pipeline in STEM. As we can see on screen, despite circa 50% of STEM GCSEs and A-levels being completed by young women and girls, only 29% of STEM subjects at university are completed by women, with another smaller drop-off when entering the workforce. The drop-off is even more significant for apprenticeships, with only 9% of apprenticeships in STEM being completed by women. Next slide, please. So that's kind of got us thinking about one key element of the business case, and we're going to do a brief overview of the wider business case for gender diversity in STEM and inclusivity by extension as well. And That leaky talent pipeline that we just spoke about, addressing that and widening the talent pool is just one aspect of improving access to skilled workers in STEM, which is one of the fundamental elements of the business case for gender diversity in STEM. Skill shortages are increasing across STEM and are going to be felt even more. Ooh, can we? There we go. Back on the slide. Skill shortages are increasing across STEM and are going to be felt even more keenly in the tech space. As reported by The Guardian, 60% of businesses believe their reliance on digital skills is set to rise over the next 5 years. Getting women into STEM and tech roles will allow organisations to better address this shortage with a wealth of available talent. It will also help address the gender imbalance present in many organisations, which will attract further talented women and continue to address the skill shortage we're currently facing in a positive feedback loop. As well as addressing skills gaps and gender imbalances, the UK government estimates that taking action to reduce the gender gaps in labour market participation, STEM qualifications and wages could increase the size of the UK economy by about 2% by 2030. Now we can move on. Diverse workforces bring diversity of thought and experience, and this leads to better solutions and more innovation. The McKinsey report, Diversity Wins in 2020, found that more diverse teams are more likely to radically innovate and anticipate shifts in consumer needs. A 2020 Forbes article also highlighted that companies with greater gender diversity generate about 34% of their revenues from innovative products and services. Diverse teams also have the ability to look at problems from different perspectives and come up with novel solutions that meet the needs of a diverse population. A British Computing Society study in 2021 found that having more women on a team provides a more balanced view when it comes to gender issues, such as bias in AI, product design, and the creation of technology. A diverse workforce that has a better understanding of the customer also means companies can more easily reach new markets and has the knowledge of how to engage with them effectively once they enter them. Women are customers, clients, and users too, and having STEM-skilled women as part of a team can lead to more inclusive insight into the design of products and services. A more inclusive team can also address issues around unconscious bias and improve engagement with customers on a human level. When you represent the customers you serve, you can empathize with them more and they can connect with you much more easily. And this overall benefit to customer experience was summed up nicely by Karina Govinji, who was the recipient of Asian Women of Achievement Award in Business. And she said, when you're playing to a £12.45 trillion market, which is the global women consumer market, employing women in leadership roles who understand the consumer needs of women is no longer just a nice thing to do, it's essential. Finally, all of the above leads to better financial performance. And there's a wealth of evidence that shows that diverse teams financially outperform non-diverse teams. According to the 2020 McKinsey Women in the Workplace report, organizations in the top quartile for gender and ethnic diversity financially outperform those in the bottom quartile by 25%. Diversity in the boardroom is not only fundamental for establishing role models and setting the example to the rest of the organization, it has financial benefits too. Companies with 3 or more women directors have been shown to significantly outperform those with less diverse boardrooms, according to an analysis of 12 years of data by Glasgow Caledonia University. And again, there are also macro financial benefits of gender diversity. A Wise and Amazon joint report found that a 10% increase in women innovators in the UK could generate £3 billion for UK businesses. And Impacts Assessment Management estimate that full economic equality for women could boost global gross domestic product by $28 trillion by 2025. So that's an overview of the business case, and I hope you can all see that it's extremely strong. And we're now going to hand over to a couple of some of our partner organisations to talk about the impacts that diversity and inclusion has had on their organisations. So I'll hand over to our first speaker, Simon from Air Products.
Good morning. Thank you, Jack, for the laying out the business case for diversity and inclusion. Hopefully, what I can do in the context of Air Products is explain a little bit of our company background and the journey we've been on to try and be successful in this area. So if we can look at the next slide. You get both myself and Alice Willett, should have introduced Alice, will be helping me with some of the later slides. So let's keep going. And again, please. So just as an introduction, so my name is Simon Earnshaw. I'm one of our European operations directors, and I've been with Air Products pretty much my entire working life, which is 37 years now. And as you can see from just a few stats on the company, Air Products were a global industrial gas organization. We've been in business about 75 years. So I've seen at least half of that journey from being relatively small in starting in the US and becoming what you see there, which is a global, multinational corporation operating in over 50 countries with a lot of employees, serving an awful lot of customers and different industry sectors. But one big sector which is really growing hugely for us is hydrogen, or sustainable energy. And as we look to expand and grow in that space and provide the renewable fuels that the world needs, we need talent. And that's, I think, a really good lead-in to why this is such an important subject for us. And for me personally, during that time, I've been incredibly fortunate with my career and have lived and worked in countries in Europe, in the States, and more recently in Asia, where I spent 5 years living and working out of Taipei, Taiwan. And whilst I've certainly not met all 21,000 employees, I've certainly met a good number, worked in a number of those countries, and traveling like that and working around the world, you really get an appreciation of the depth of talent and the diversity within any organization. And it leads me passionate about wanting to talk about how we've helped develop that and hopefully taking it forwards. Next slide, please. First thing, like I guess a large number of corporations, particularly maybe with an American accent, is we've got a goal statement. And for Air Products, it's always really been a simple sentence. Air Products will be the safest. Now, it's very important to us, most profitable industrial gas company in the world, providing excellent service to our customers. But what you see in the middle of that are two words in blue: the most diverse. And to be honest, when I joined 30 odd years ago, it didn't say most diverse. In fact, it didn't say anything about diversity. It wasn't talked about. But within the last 10 years, particularly as our new chairman came in, and you'll hear from him in a second, he very deliberately injected those two words into our corporate goal statement. And I think by putting it up there right in front of everybody, it's really sort of put a stake in the ground for intention and has made a big difference. So that's our goal statement. If we can go to the next slide, and I introduce Seifi Gassemi. He's our chairman. There's, I think, just a few seconds of a video from him explaining why this is important to himself. Can we play the video?
But with respect to our so-called new goal for the company, which now includes an element of diversity and inclusion, the reason for that is that if we want to grow Air Products, we need to get the benefit of the talents of all of the people in the company. From day one, I've always talked about the company culture and our higher purpose, which is creating an environment where people want to come to work, love to come to work. We need to create that environment for everybody. So I just wanted to make sure that it is part of our goal that we want to be the safest and most diverse and most profitable industrial gas company. And that means we are a company that wants to include and to get the benefit of all of the people from all of the different sectors of the society.
Fabulous. Next slide, please. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an impression of the dimensions of the company and the sort of company we are. And whilst I didn't cover it in the introduction of Seifi, Seifi been basically in the industrial gas industry most of his career, based in the US now, but he grew up in the Middle East, in Iran, and even today travels extensively around the organization, promoting not just the business, but as you can see from it, the culture and the importance of diversity inclusion in our organization. So in many ways, I do believe it's in our DNA. I think it's taken us quite a long time to draw it out and make it visible and realize the importance as we've grown around the world. But we've basically become a global, multicultural and diverse organization. We do work in countries all across the world and, in many different cultures and environments. But as we've grown, and we certainly weren't 20,000 people when I joined, it's absolutely key we attract that talent, giving us the building blocks in which to grow the organization. Next slide. So how do you, foster and really embed that culture? It starts, obviously by having it written into the goal statement. It's fabulous that we've got a chairman that speaks about it all the time and endorses it with his own words. And even our leadership teams, that starts with Seifi himself, to reflect a level of diversity across the organization. But it is more than that. It's about all the way down through the teams in the different countries that we provide that platform where people feel included and able to contribute and thrive within the organization. And that revolves a lot of training and understanding and awareness across the different management teams in all of the countries. But even when you do put those building blocks in place and that framework, we found we needed a little bit more, because people are from many different backgrounds with all sorts of diverse views, beliefs, and giving them a forum or a series of forums where they can speak and communicate with similar and like-minded people becomes a really important building block. And that really what leads us into creating, supporting what we call employee resource groups. And it's at this point, I'm going to hand over to Alice, as being the leader and champion of several of ours in the UK, and will tell us a little bit more. Over to you, Alice.
Thank you very much, Simon. So next slide, please. Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, we have many employee resource groups. These are global groups, but we have local branches within our regions. So they are employee-led support groups with a business sponsor. Their purpose primarily is to advocate for underrepresented groups and to increase opportunities for those underrepresented groups in the workplace. They're made up of members of those underrepresented groups, but also their allies. And people really want to increase their knowledge and understanding of the challenges faced and how they can better support their colleagues. So some examples here, we have Enable, we have Fulcrum, which is around race and ethnicity, Spectrum for LGBTQ+, and then finally we have the Women's Success Network, which I'll go into a little more detail on in the next slide. Next slide, please. So some of our initiatives. We've recently run an inclusive language campaign, and it was very heavily focused around gender diversity in the language that we use and the written words. We'd had, unbeknownst to many of us, a sign on many of our sites that said, in an emergency, the man wearing this helmet is in charge. Now, really quick, easy win to change those signs to be more gender diverse. But what we wanted to do was highlight this to our people, not try and push it under the carpet, overlook it, quickly change them, but actually highlight it to our people to say, we've all overlooked this. We really encourage people to look around them, look up, look out, speak up when they're seeing things that, we can change to make more effective. We also did things during that campaign, such as identifying when emails are being sent that may say, hi gents, and the name of the female, you know, again, not inclusive, singling out the individual. So it was all about that education around inclusive language. The Women's Success Network that we have has undertaken a number of events, campaigns. So we've got things such as we've had external talks on menopause. We've had an imposter syndrome panel of leaders, female leaders within the organisation. We had women in leadership discussions and mentoring programmes. And then finally, again, one that's been overlooked for many, many years, just ensuring that we have the correct PPE for women. You know, primarily they're out and about wearing men's clothing that isn't fit for purpose, makes them feel uncomfortable. Very, very quick win again, just to make sure that we have the correct PPE for our female population. Okay, and with that, I'll hand back to Simon.
Yeah. So I guess at this point I put my hand up and say guilty as charged. I must have walked past that sign on the gate saying the man in charge is wearing the red and white helmet 1,000 times. And it was only, you know, through some of the conversations and the chats in the groups do you realize just how, how wrong it is. It's not complicated, is it? But, as I said in the introduction, fundamentally the business case, and as Jack laid out at the beginning, is like any industrial organization, particularly one that's trying to expand and grow at the moment, we are in a war for talent, and we are very, very keen that we get the best people that we can from the market and develop the best talent we have within our organization into those new roles. So there's two sides to that. One is we need to create an environment where people want to join us, but we also need to create an environment where the managers and supervisors in the team themselves are able to recognize talent across the complete organization. And there's a number of things that we've done to hopefully make that happen. One is the very simple, but not easy to do, knocking down the pillars of unconscious bias. So we do various levels, different programs around unconscious bias, giving people the lens to see past the sign with the man in the red and white hat. Obviously developed internal processes to make sure that as we're recruiting, we present the most diverse and broad bench of talent that we can, both internally and externally, so recruiting from the largest possible pool. And also, very simply, as we promote ourselves, again, internally and externally, that we're using the right language and the right visuals. It's one thing to have our chairman speaking about how important it is, but if all of the media that we put out shows the man in the red and white hat, we're missing the point. So making sure that we present ourselves in a consistent and inclusive manner. Look at the next slide. So really, just wrapping up, what has our EDI journey taught us? I said I've been in the company a long time. Building the culture I really believe we have now, it does take time. It doesn't naturally come. You think it does as you become broader and bigger in more countries with more people from different backgrounds, but it is not automatic. You've got to work on it as an organization. Leadership is super important. We're lucky to have Safi as a chairman that promotes it so well, but it's much deeper than that. It has to go down to every layer in the organization. And then even when you get that framework, having the structured and properly resourced and respected and managed resource groups makes a real difference as well. So to me, it's a combination of setting the culture, but also providing the frameworks, the mechanisms, and the resources to be successful. So hopefully that gives a little bit of a feeling for who we are as an organization. Maybe I've done a little bit to help in our war for talent and attract a few new people to the organization, but also explain the journey we've been on and remain on, because Alice, we're not done yet, are we? And it's something we've got to keep working on.
It's an ongoing journey, yeah.
So Jack, thank you very much for the opportunity, and hand back to yourself.
Fantastic. Thanks, Simon and Alice, for talking us through why diversity and inclusion is important for our products and the great work that's being done to create that inclusive culture within the organisation. We're now going to hand over to our next speaker, Gary from Hayden Gas. If you're there, Gary.
I am Jack. Thank you. That's great. Good morning, everyone. It's a real privilege to be here today. So thank you so much for the invite. It's much appreciated. Go to the next slide, please. And the next one, please. So just in terms of who I am, so obviously my name's Gary Hawkins. I work for a company called Cadent Gas, the largest gas distribution company in the country. We operate over 4 different networks, and my responsibility is the head of street works and reinstatement, and also collaboration out of our London network. Massively busy, massively diverse. Been in the public and private sector for about 20 years. Just noticed on the attendees today, there's quite a few familiar faces from one of my old jobs. So lovely to see you all. My upbringing, and we'll kind of get to this, was lower class. Grew up in quite a nasty part of West London on a council estate. No real experience of, sort of inclusivity and diversity growing up. Left school at 16 with no real qualifications, and I think my drive and passion for driving change has kind of got me to where I am today. And obviously the willingness to engage and learn with people has been a real plus point for me. I have no children. I do have ADHD, unfortunately, a bit of BPD. So if I do swear today, please, I apologise in advance. It's just who I am, unfortunately. I think it's really important for you guys to understand that before becoming an advocate, and this is a real change for me, it was like kind of a head in the sand moment for me, really unaware of the issues of women in industry. And I'm really, really pleased that I've been able to sort of go on this journey with LoWEG, and we'll talk through that as part of the presentation. And like most things, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect, because I'm really not. I have some really good people who I work with who check me from time to time and educate me. So every day's a school day. I can see Donna smiling there. So she's she's the one who holds the ruler sometimes. So if you go to the next slide, please. So this is not just male colleagues, but this is generally some of the feedback I've got whilst doing my work with LoWEG, and you guys can take that how you want. I know how I've taken it, and I know how certain other people have taken it. So for me, as a 46-year-old man getting into working in women in engineering and trying to support this, it still presents its challenges, and there's still a bit of a stigma around it. So I'm hoping today will form part of a positive outcome moving forward. Don't really want to labour on this statement, ridiculous really, but we should move on to the more positive stuff. So if you go to the next slide. I don't know if she's on the call, but this was a huge shout out. So you kind of have these moments in your life where people change your life completely, and that happened to me when I was 44. As part of my role within Cadent, we decided to do some reverse mentoring with some of our teams, and I was so fortunate to have Gloria pick me, if I'm honest. And I met Gloria in 2022, and with limited knowledge, was completely blown away with the challenges that present themselves within the gas sector and the industry. And it's completely changed my life in terms of the struggles, the challenges. And Gloria absolutely belies her years, engaging, driven and sharp. She set up women in engineering groups at university, and it was just something that I would massively promote in terms of senior managers within positions to go and speak to people within your teams and get a view from them. It's so important. And while we spent 3 months together, I really wanted to do something different with Gloria and try and build something within our London network which would support the drive for women in engineering within Cadent. So it was a real positive, and I can't thank her enough. As I say, you get these moments in your life where people change your life, and she was certainly a huge part of this. So I'm always be grateful for Gloria for that. So if you go to the next one, please. As part of the LoWEG collaboration, which we'll get onto, the team at LoWEG, they did some surveys around, what the women in our industry sort of kind of feel, and these are some of the statements that some of my colleagues have made. Again, looping into your stuff, Simon and Alice, around PPE provisions. There's certainly some links in there which are quite consistent. The role models in senior positions, that needs a lot of work. Mansplaining, I learned out what what that was. That's a new one on me, but that was quite interesting to understand. But again, these sort of topics, there was 20 or 30 of these which really resonated with me, and we wanted to do something different to try and support this. So I'm sure this is going to be quite consistent to a lot of people on the call, some of these comments that they get, and hopefully, fingers crossed, by what we're doing today can really help this. So if you move on to the next one, please. So in terms of what I could do, again, having limited knowledge, the one thing that I do in my job is engage and have a good stakeholder presence across my network. So the right thing to do was maybe speak to Gloria about how we build something in London. And fortunately, we had another 3 of my friends, colleagues, who were very, very keen to join it. So Donna's smiling. I worked with Donna for over 10 years at Hammersmith and Fulham. She was first on the list. And then what we did was we decided to build and work on the London Women in Engineering Group, which you'll hear something about today, and the massive improvements and changes they've done over the course of 12 months. Effectively, this was really important for me that we didn't just get the view from the private sector. There is also challenges around public sector as well. And I thought with discussions with Gloria, Donna and the team, it was really, really encouraging to get a view from both sides of things. So we started looking at this sort of late November 2022, and it's just increased massively since then. So if you go to the next slide, please. And in terms of the board, so you'll meet the guys later. Obviously, Donna, known Donna for ever such a long time. I'm not going to embarrass Gloria again. Christy, I've known, and I work with some people in her family. Christy is site-based, so she offers that alternative view of life. And Justine was absolutely the right person to get on board as well, with her experience in the gas sector, both on the contract side and on obviously the private sector side. So getting these 4 women together and building something and really trying to support what they were trying to do is something that makes me incredibly proud. And I'm sure the 4 ladies who will come and speak about this later are also incredibly proud about this. So I would implore you to sign up to this. You'll get a lot of this later about joining LoWEG, but please, we want thousands of people to come and join us. You know, hopefully, Donna, is that okay? We'll get thousands of people. So yeah, we'll speak about that later. And if we go to the next one, please. So in terms of being an advocate, again, it's all about me getting support from Justine, Christy, Donna and Gloria and the colleagues that I work with as well, and actually listening. Actually spent some time sitting, talking to my wife last night, who works in the financial industry, about some of the disgraceful stuff that happens in that sector. And sometimes you have to listen, but you really do have to hear what's going on. And by having LoWEG as part of my life and my sort of, you know, my role, it really does challenge me to try and really push for change. So my team is very diverse, very young, and they really absorb information. So we give them the power to challenge where they feel, you know, there's inappropriate behaviour. That's always a challenge in the industry. The working groups around STEM, women in engineering, for example, I've spoken to a couple of the LoWEG members who, it's a real shame that some councils don't actually see this as an opportunity for people to turn up and network and actually promote this. And I know that there's been challenges with some of the particular councils in London not freeing up staff to actually come to these events. So maybe that will change on the back of this call today, because this is important as a safety briefing for me and stuff like that. Again, challenging behaviours. For me, this is quite a important one, to try and to recruit my male colleagues. So I'm a 46-year-old white person. I'm all right. It's trying to get everyone else, you know, to come on board and really, really push this and change this, which is really, really important. I'm lucky enough to be as part of the utility sector. I'm on the London Joint Utility Group and London Hawk, which combines both utilities and councils together. We're really pushing this within the utility sectors. It's been really pleasing to see the likes of Thames, UKPN, you know, contractors come on board from around the country and really support the drive on LoWEG. And in terms of, you know, the next generation of engineers, as part of LoWEG's charter, you know, getting into more schools and actually telling the story about how great it is to be a woman in engineering is the next step on part of the charter. And again, using our contacts within London, we hope to facilitate that in the next few months as part of the plan. And if my last slide, please. Again, not labouring the point, but this has really changed my life, and it's really changed my outlook. And I'll be eternally grateful to what we've done, and the team that supported me, and also the staff who have checked me from time to time. For me, advocacy is, you don't have to be an expert, but listening and learning is so important, and being there to support change. My role, I see it as I'm here to promote challenge and change things. It's as simple as that. Again, using my stakeholders to get more people involved, and particularly my male counterparts, and really changing the narrative around challenging and calling out negative behaviours. And I think I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for giving me the time today. It's much appreciated.
Thanks so much for that, Gary. Yeah, we always talk about the importance of allies and how it's important and okay to make mistakes and learn and grow when you're on an allyship journey. So to hear you kind of speak so candidly about that at the start was really valuable, and it was great to hear all the work that you and the LoWEG team have done since as well. So thank you so much for that. We're gonna quickly do some do 3 Slido questions now, which is you as an audience a chance to get involved, and then we'll if you've got questions, we can move to the Q&A thereafter as well. So Slido is accessed by either going to slido.com and putting in the code that you see on screen there, or you can use your smartphone and scan the QR code and participate that way. These are just a bit of fun to kind of get your brains thinking and maybe inspire some questions for any of our speakers so far today as well. Next slide, please, Shamini. So as you can see, the QR code and the numerical code are there on screen, so you can still access that way. What we'd like you to do is think about which 3 words best describe your idea of an inclusive work culture. And when you submit these, it's going to create what's kind of called like a word cloud. So we'll see see the sort of themes that are coming up in people's answers and what everyone overall thinks is the best idea of an inclusive work culture. So yeah, I think it's really great to see safety in there as well. That's something that Gary touched on, with it being, diversity and inclusion being as important as the safety briefings, and an inclusive workplace is a safe workplace as well. So great to see that. Openness and respect coming through as 2 of the biggest or most popular words so far. Absolutely, I think openness being part of being able to be like your true self and be open about that, and respecting the views and opinions and level of experience of others as well. Everyone's at different places in their diversity and inclusion journey. It's important to respect that and help bring people along. Supportive, yeah, absolutely. Seeing other things in their psychological safety, especially, that's kind of plays into the diversity and inclusion creating a safe workplace. Kindness, such a simple one, but really important. It's fundamental to being inclusive and creating that sense of belonging. We can all be kind. Some elements of inclusivity there. So we've got flexible, so both in terms of access to flexible working arrangements, but also being flexible in your approach and your ideas as well. Transparency, representation, and visibility, both really important in terms of role models higher up in the organization, being good at representation externally, and visibility of role models externally too. Yeah, there's some great answers there, and good to see a good spread of answers too. Should we try the next question, Shamini? So I want you to think about, in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest factor that can impede long-term EDI success? So what's maybe, in 1 or 2 words, what's the kind of like, what's the biggest barrier that you think to EDI success? Unconscious bias, yeah, that's a big one. Because here in the Air Products presentation that work being done at the organisation to try and upskill on unconscious bias and mitigate against it. So that's it's great to see it there. So lack of senior management engagement and lack of support from senior leadership. One of WISE's 10 steps as part of our framework, which we'll talk about in a bit, is around educate your leaders and the role that visible support from leadership plays in promoting the behaviours and the culture that you want to see in an organisation. So I think it's great to see it there. No visible role models. Yeah, representation is super important. It can be difficult to see how you can progress at an organisation if there's no one at the top that looks like you. Ignorance. Yeah, so the three biggest ones we've got there is leadership, culture, unconscious bias. Yeah. Unwillingness to change. I think that's really important as well. It kind of touches on something that we heard in both presentations. I mean, we heard from Simon that obviously Air Products over the 30 plus years that he's been there has shown a willingness to change, and that's been kind of cemented by the new chief executive, and Gary himself talking about his willingness to change in terms of his eyes being open to the challenges faced by women. So I think that's a really prudent point to put in there. You have to be open to being challenged and open to having your ideas and perspectives changed, for sure. Workload, I've seen at the top there, is an interesting one as well. It's really important to keep diversity and inclusion at the top of the agenda, even when work is busy or finances are tight. Sometimes it can be tempting for that to drop off the agenda, but it's really important that it stays there because it's business critical, really. I think we've covered most of the lack of true commitment coming up as a big one there. So yeah, some great suggestions there, particularly around tackling unconscious bias, the role that leaders play, and also that willingness to change and have your ideas challenged as well. All super important. As we move on to the last one, Charbonnet. So this is a bit more of an open question. So if you think about your organisation, what EDI initiative or policy are you hoping to introduce in 2024? That could be what you're hoping to introduce and that you know is in the pipeline if you work in HR or as part of the EDI team or as part of the leadership team, or it might be what you're hoping to see introduced. Update family leave policies to be more inclusive. Yeah, I would say, a holistic review of policies is always good, and they can always be updated and improved to make sure they're as kind of progressive and inclusive as they can be. Neurodiversity awareness, yeah, menopause and anti-racism, all can be elements of a wider diversity inclusion strategy, but all with specific initiatives and activities aligned to them. Transparency on salaries, yeah, it's really difficult to effectively and truly kind of work to reduce the gender pay gap, both within an organisation or in an industry, if we don't know what each of us paid and there's secrecy around it. So we at WISE we always promote transparency around pay. It's really critical to inclusion and kind of fairness in experience as well. Women's health, promote women in engineering in our schools. Yeah. A little early plug there. WISE's My Skills My Life tool could support with that, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Introduce compulsory senior management unconscious bias training at a high level. We know there are some WISE member organisations that have taken that step and seen success with it as well. Coming back to that element of the role that leaders play in creating the culture that you want to see in an organisation, some WISE members have made reverse mentoring mandatory for those on their exec teams, tied it to their kind of performance targets as well. And you can do the same with that unconscious bias. It can send a really powerful message, show that there's true commitment at that level. Commit to targeting a percentage of women in leadership roles. Yeah, it's really great to have targets to work to. It shows intent and kind of like focuses efforts as well. Okay. Thanks so much for all your suggestions, everyone. To the 3 questions. Hopefully that's got you in the question asking mindset, and we've got 15 minutes now, or just under 15 minutes, to take some questions and put them to our speakers today. I'll just check the chat. We've got no questions so far, but we've got really great feedback for you, in particular Gary, saying that people are going to continue to promote LoWEG, and it's great to hear all the work that you're doing. One question that I had, and I'll put this to the team at Air Products. When you were talking about your employee resource groups, you mentioned that allies are included as well. And I guess I wanted to ask, how important is it to include allies in the EDI journey and the employee resource groups?
Let me start with answering that. So the easy answer is very. Listening to Gary, it made me smile, because I think a number of us have had similar experiences where you get told a few home truths by people half your age, and fair play for them for speaking up and giving you that advice, and then being able to do something with it is super important. But I think, Alice, it doesn't naturally come to most people, and putting a bit of structure into allyship training been pretty effective for us, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's all about challenging the biases, amplifying those kind of marginalized voices, and fostering that psychological safety that someone mentioned earlier. So it is so important, and we do run allyship certification programs within our ERGs. Yeah,
I mean, allyship training is something that we offer as well, and that was in response to it, there being like great demand for it, and organisations seeing the kind of like potential impact and the importance of bringing allies on that journey as well, but giving them some structure and some education as to how to get involved and come on the journey. Michelle Farmer, you've got your hand up. Do you want to come off mute and ask a question?
Yeah, I've been having accessibility problems with this event, actually, for one. I haven't been able to access the chat. I put something in the question and answers as regards to the inaccessibility of Slido. So I think if we're talking about equality and diversity, I think one of the things we do need to consider is, these kinds of things in presentations and how we're communicating with the audience. So that's definitely one issue. I also come with a background in education, and I've worked for most of my life in universities, and I found that one of the biggest problems is for people from diverse backgrounds, and especially women, trying to get through the university process as well, because there's a lot of discrimination within there. I mean, we've only got to look at the Tim Hunt scandal some time ago, who said that women shouldn't be in labs because they fall in love and cry and all this kind of stuff. So it's not just in schools, it's all the way through, and that I really don't know how we're going to work with that. But as I say, definitely, we need to be considering accessibility also in our educational systems when we're doing things like these kinds of presentations. Sorry to put a dampener on that, but it is an issue.
Yeah, that's okay, Michelle. It's really important to raise, and like and this comes back to the point that we were talking about in when people were suggesting words in there, kind of like being open to education and to challenge as well. Like if there's been accessibility issues, then you're absolutely right to raise it. It's probably my fault in the housekeeping. I should have mentioned that there is the live captioning option on Teams should you need it. And if you've got other feedback about the accessibility in terms of maybe the color schemes on the slides, or being able to read them, or any audio issues or technology as well, then like it would be great if you could put that in an email to us as well, and we can address it for next time.
I did put it into the question and answer, but I'm not sure if you can actually see it because I haven't been able to access the chat at all.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's come through. So Slido is not accessible, and this kind of thing needs considering. It's a problem for those with vision dexterity, neurodiversity, and other visual disturbance issues. Okay. So what would be great is if we could well, what we'll do is we'll take this offline and we can work out how we can make that better, because Slido is a tool that we use quite a lot, and it's something that actually is really great for engagement. So if it's got issues with accessibility, then that's something we definitely would want to address and kind of make more accessible moving forward, because we still want to be able to use it and get the audience participation, but we want to make sure it's as accessible as possible. So we'll pick that up. As regards to the second part of the question, in terms of how we tackle kind of like gender bias and discrimination and kind of sexist attitudes in schools and in education, I think outreach from organizations can play like a really key part in that. Obviously there's like, you're limited to the impact that you can have in terms of like the curriculum and what's being taught, but I think both Caden and Air Products can probably talk about the merits of outreach. I know you both mentioned it in your slides as well.
Yeah, I think
maybe let me start.
Yeah, go on, Simon. After you. Go on, Simon.
Okay. So outreach is the word I think we all use. One simple piece, because we've been standing up and sending people into schools for a long time, but most recently, and I think what I think is most effective is our new graduates. We have a 3-year graduate program. They said, "Come on, Air Products, let us do that." It's much more effective for people not that long from school to go back to schools or go to schools in the area where they're working and stand up and talk about their experiences and what that sort of big, sort of slightly scary world of industry might look like once you jump into it. And I think that, to me, that's tremendous to see. We all, I think, like to do it, but in terms of truly being effective and impactful, pushing it down to the new members of the organisation both gives them an opportunity to present and get out there, but also to connect with the next generation.
Yeah, Jack, in terms of Cadence, so we've kind of done something a bit innovative around engagement, not just around sort of women in engineering with schools, but also accessibility in general. We've been working on a Minecraft video game that promotes safe road and street works around networks. And what we did as part of that, we ensured that some of the game characters were visually impaired students in wheelchairs, and also women engineers on site, to try and give that sort of view from children, particularly in primary schools, that this isn't just a male-orientated industry. So we worked very hard with the team on that to make sure that was rolled out. So that's something slightly different, which we're trying to do. I think, having done an assembly last week with about 350 kids, using innovative technologies, sort of gameplay, it also attracts kids who don't potentially want to sit there and listen to a class all day, but potentially look at, using a video game to sort of increase their knowledge around stuff. And it landed quite well. We're hopeful that we're going to try and increase that a bit more broadly across our network. But for me, the innovation side of things and maybe getting in at that level where people can actually enjoy whilst learning would be probably the way forward for me.
I'm back. I was only going off on one time today. I was just saying, having young nieces that are obsessed with Minecraft and play it a lot, I could definitely see that being a really kind of effective tool for engaging with them. And we're coming back to kind of like relatable role models as well, using graduates and like apprentices and younger employees, like you were talking about. Air Products, Simon, is going to help like make them people more relatable, and like you can see actually this is achievable, and also they can empathise with them much more closely. I'll just check the chat to see if there's so there's a question from Faye in the chat, Faye Allen, saying, do you ever get comments about using the word ally? I recently had someone say it's connected to war and shouldn't be used. I mean, my personal take is that I've not heard that that take on the word ally before, but does anyone have any, I guess we could open that up a little bit broader and say, do you have any challenges when you're promoting allyship, in your respective organisations as well?
I guess for me, as part of the presentation, it's probably just that perception of why you're doing it. That will always be there, I suppose. A middle-aged 40-year-old man helping try and drive women in engineering. It's not just inside work; it's probably outside work as well with the perceptions. But yeah, in terms of allies, they can call me what they want. I'm still going to do it. It makes no difference. So yeah, it's kind of. I believe it's more around people's problems, not my problem. And that's where we've got to drive that behaviour a bit harder, I think. But yeah, for me, not really. It's a simple one to solve.
Yeah. So I have another question as well. So obviously, well, there we go. We'll go to Ian Hawthorne instead. That's much better than my questions.
Sure, your questions are fantastic. I'm Ian Hawthorne. I'm the Assistant Director for Highways for Hammersmith and Fulham. I get the privilege to work with Donna. I've also had the privilege to work with Gary, so there you go. Know both of the people on there. My question is slightly different, is what more can I do to help you? So I've promoted LoWEG for a while. What more can senior officers like me do in local government? You talked about local government, some councils not allowing people to go to your meetings. Can I help there? I suppose the question for me is, what more can I do? It's an honest question because I'm a bit like Gary. I'm white, middle-aged as well, although I'm slightly older than Gary.
It's a really good question. I mean, I think in terms of the outreach, so LoWEG, for example, it's got the London title in it. That's not the plan. The plan's to go as big as it can do. I think commitments from people in your position in around, we have toolbox talks, we have safety stand downs, we have HR events, courses to do an Excel spreadsheet, but and time has to be allocated for that. So really, this should be part of a work curriculum. And if people want to do stuff like this, the time should be made. And I think with the template that you're doing, speaking to the people in your position and higher, would be amazing. Also for me, the LoWEG team could potentially look at doing something in terms of unconscious bias, and we could almost have a templated training scheme out that we could deliver on teams across senior leaders across London and further. So that's for me the support. I know you've always been very supportive, Ian, so thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, and I think that's that question is actually a nice segue into the kind of next part of the session as well, where we're going to hand over to Donna from LoWEG to talk to us a little bit more. If we move the slide on, Chamonix. But before we do that, and again, so coming back to the question previously about accessibility as well, and any other kind of feedback that you have, positive or negative, if you want to tell speakers how great they've been, as I'm sure you do, or tell me what I could do better, because I'm sure there's lots of things I could. Please feel free to use the event feedback QR code. It'll be great if you could take a couple minutes to complete it. All feedback's really useful for us, and we really want to hear your thoughts, particularly in light of some of the questions today as well. Now, with that said, I think it's now time to hand over to Donna and LoWEG, if we move on, Chamonix.
Thanks, Jack. So I'm joined today by there's half of LoWEG on the call. So Gloria and myself are on the call. Christy will be dipping in and out, and Justine couldn't make it, unfortunately. But just to say hello, thank you so much to Wise for inviting us to partner with this event. This is amazing for us. Gloria is going to talk a little bit about who LoWEG is and our history. So Gloria, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Donna. Hi, everyone. I'm Gloria. I'm from Cadent Gas. I think Gary's already done a little bit of an intro for me, but yes, I'm one of the 4 co-founders of LoWEG. And yeah, I'll just take us through a bit about how LoWEG formed. Our initial aim was to bring together women from all over London who are working in all these different sectors. And despite the name, we've expanded far further than just London, and we're not just engineers, it's more just women within the STEM industry who are looking for sort of that space to be able to share experiences they've gone through and support each other through challenges. The QR code in the bottom left is just for the LinkedIn group we've set up, and feel free to scan it if you are a woman and want to join the LoWEG group, as we're constantly growing and looking to put on sort of more events and things like that. So yeah, onto the history. If we just go next slide and then next slide again, I'll just take us through what we've done. So we launched in November 2022, which has gone by so quickly. I can't believe how fast the year has gone. But since then, we sort of meet every couple of months, and we'll alternate between in-person and online sort of meetings. And then we'll have sort of a set of speakers, and we'll have a safe to speak up session at the end. So the safe to speak up session essentially is an anonymous, we use Slido to sort of keep it anonymous. People can put things that they're going through, any sort of experiences that they've faced, whether it's challenges or whether it's something a bit more positive, and then we just sort of discuss it as a group, giving each other support on anything that people are going through, which is really great. At the moment, we've expanded to over 300 members from, like I said, not just London, from a number of organisations. And at every meeting, we tend to sort of average between 55 and 70 women. I think the very first meeting we had 89 attendees, and I think we were just blown away at how many people sort of wanted to join a group like LoWEG just by hearing the message and just by hearing what we wanted to achieve. And since then, the group's just continually been growing, with more and more people sort of sharing what they want from the group, which we're hoping to sort of deliver throughout the year. So the next couple of slides are just screenshots from our online sessions, just to show sort of the community that we have built and that we're continuing to build. So feel free to, yeah, like I said, share it with anyone that is interested. So in June of 23, we celebrated International Women in Engineering Day. It was the first sort of big celebration we did. So we'd had an in-person before that, but it was our first sort of in-person celebration for International Women's Day. And it was just a really great event to sort of do what we do online in person, connect with loads of different people from different organisations, and then also again do our sort of usual safe to speak up, share what we're going through, and then support each other through those challenges, which was just a really amazing session. And we also had a bit of merch. I don't know if you can see the bottles in the corner, which was great. We then held our first in-person site visit. So that was October of last year. And we were able to go to Hammersmith and Fulham Bridge, which was shut. And so no cars have been going on it, only sort of pedestrians. And it was our first site visit. It was a great chance to just get out on site with other women in engineering, and I remember sort of we got some really good feedback of people saying they've never sort of been on a site and seen so many women in the STEM industry on site. So that was really sort of empowering for the women that did come along, and we were able to just learn so much. And so going forward, we're hoping to put on more site visits, more events where people can just come down and learn about whatever projects people have going on. And yeah, it was just great to sort of network. And on the day, the 2 sort of engineers and project managers that took us through the site were women who are working in the industry. So it shows that there are role models out there. It's just finding them so that we can showcase them to inspire the next generation as well. So we also got to see Sysbot, which essentially is a robot which goes into the pipework. It's launched into pipework to reseal the joints. So we got to have a tour of ULC, who owns Sysbot, to just sort of see the robotics aspect of things, which was a second site visit we went on. And yeah, we're just hoping to continue doing more site visits. We then celebrated our first birthday in November, so 1 year, November 23, and like I've said, it just went so quickly, like the year. But it was great to see how much we'd achieved over a year. Like over 300 women brought together in the London Women Engineering Group, and I don't think we really expected that, but what it really showed us was the importance of LoWEG and how we need groups like this to encourage women to stay in the industry, because an event we'd gone to right near the start showed us of how we have lack of retention in STEM, and that's one of the issues in terms of increasing sort of diversity within the industry. So hoping that this space will encourage people to feel the support that they need so that they can sort of stay within the industry, and just keep sort of growing together. So I'll just pass over to Donna, who's gonna take us through sort of the speakers we've had and a bit about like the future.
Thanks, Gloria. Yeah, we've been super lucky. So as we mentioned, we have 2 speakers typically per meeting. If you just go on to the next slide, please, Shamina. Thanks. So we've had speakers from Transport for London, Amazing, Cadent Gas, London Borough Barnet, Geoplace, Hammersmith & Fulham, Morrison Energy Services, NRP, Wise, Jack spoke at our last meeting, Brightly, and we had a speaker from I Am Remarkable. And so what we're able to do through our meetings is showcase role models in other organisations to our members, which I think works really well. And we've got a nice mix between public and private sector members, and the I Am Remarkable session just touched everyone, and everyone was quite keen to become a Be Remarkable advocate or an ambassador at the end. So if you want any information about that, just let me know. Next slide, please, Shamina. So why is LoWEG needed? At the very beginning, when Gary put the 4 of us in touch with each other, we had no idea what we were creating. When we set up the first meeting, we thought, oh, there might be a handful of women that attend. So when 89 women joined the call, I think we were all just blown away. And as Gloria mentioned, it has just grown and grown. So we have members now from like Kent County Council. We have people from National Rail, so not London based, but they've heard about what we're doing and they're keen to get involved. And because our group is cross organisation, we're able to not only provide that safe space for women to come and learn and network from each other, but the Safe to Speak Up session that Gloria mentioned is so important. We use Slido so people can put in anonymously any issues they have at their place of work. So it could be anything. We've had comments about like sexism in the workplace and how to handle like unacceptable behaviour, and we can brainstorm that as a group and offer support and advice. At one of our sessions, one of our members put in the Slido chat that they were having problems with their mental health. 2 members of the LoWEG board are trained mental health first aiders, and we were able to kind of get straight in there and say you can speak to the board members, or there's all of these other resources, and we could pass that information on. And it was really good for us to be able to give that support to someone that maybe doesn't have that support in their organisation. So next slide, please, Shamina. And we've got a few testimonials here. I won't read them out, so we'll just leave each slide on for a few seconds so you can have a read yourself. But we do sort of a feedback every so often, and we ask people if they'd be willing to tell us like what they think of the group and what we can do better. Because there's, like I think Gary said earlier on, no one's perfect and there's definitely always room for improvement. And with LoWEG, we want to keep offering something that's going to make a difference. So next slide, please, Shamina. Thanks. I mean, I love the first line of this one. It makes it all worthwhile for us. it's kept me working in this industry. I mean, that's just amazing to hear. But then at the same time, the other side of that is, gosh, you know, it's great that LoWEG now is there and it's filling this space, but what happened before then? And, you know, why are there these problems? The issue around ill-fitting PPE comes up quite regularly in our meetings, and how you can't just like pop to Greenham's and get a women's PPE jacket, high-vis jacket. They always have to order them in. My safety boots are still men's because it's easier to get hold of a men's pair of boots and break them in rather than the women's ones. And like, you know, that is a huge thing that collectively needs to change. It's great that, you know, WISE do their bit, we do our bit, but, you know, we all need to kind of pull together to kind of make these changes to the industry. Next slide, please, Shamina. So through our meetings, and you'll see on the screens, like the testimonials, we've really filled the void, and we're keen to expand our membership into 2024. So we're at just over 300. It would be great to hit 500 members. I'm not sure if we would find a space if for when we have our in-persons, if everyone starts showing up. And something that has been an issue for us is getting sponsorship. So obviously, like, you know, renting a space is always pricey, but we've been very lucky so far that GeoPlace have gifted us a venue twice, and the London Borough of Barnet are providing a space for us for our International Women's Day event in March, I think then. And it's handy having online meetings in between, because we know that it's not always possible to travel to a venue. Some of our speakers would rather present online than in person. So we try and make it as inclusive as possible. So yeah, so if people can't attend in person, they know that the next meeting will be online. Next slide, please, Shamina. Thanks. So I think this is our last testimonial. And the running theme between all of these comments from our members seems to be, you know, being a woman working in a male-dominated sector can be quite isolating. So this group, you know, provides that extra support from women that may not be doing the same job as you, but it's providing that space where you can see what other women are doing within like the highways / you know, utility sector. We're hoping to expand so we can offer like shadowing opportunities or mentorship in the future. But watch this space, because, you know, we've got big plans for 2024. Next slide, please, Shamina. Oh, there was one more. Just leave that up for a few seconds. Next one, please, Shamina. Thanks. So last year, we were just blown away with how many awards we were nominated for, and we won a few, so that was a big surprise as well. Next slide, please, Shamina. So we won highly commended at the Highway Awards in October, and that was a huge surprise, because, you know, just as a brand new group. So yeah, it's a shame we didn't win, but, you know, next year, well, this year, so fingers crossed. And that was in the health and wellbeing category, and I think that they recognised that we were providing something that isn't already out there. Next slide, please, Shamina. And we also won the Communication and Community Engagement Award at the Streetworks UK Award, which I think was in November. So that was a huge surprise for us as well. You know, it's well and good being nominated, but to actually win these things was just incredible for us. And it's given the group, you know, a little bit of a spotlight. And I think that's why our membership has sort of surged towards the end of last year, which is great. Next one, please, Shamina. And yeah, we were shortlisted for the utility award. We didn't win, but, you know, the fact that we were shortlisted was just amazing. So how can you get involved? So I've put the contact details of the board members on the screen. The LinkedIn link is in the chat if you can't access the QR code. So we're open to anyone who is a woman or those identifying as women. So yeah, we are inclusive. It tends to be a space just for women. So Jack, as I mentioned, spoke at our last meeting. Jack was our first ever male speaker. Thanks, Jack. So we do try to have female speakers to just promote the you can't be what you can't see. So just the representation. But yeah, if anyone is keen on joining us, please reach out to one of the board members on the screen, and I think our details are all on the meeting invite as well. I think that's it for LoWEG. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much for that, Gloria and Donna. It was great to hear, you know, the growth of LoWEG, the great work that you're doing, and great to see that that's all being recognised with those awards as well, because you deserve it. And it was an honour and a slightly scary privilege to be the first man to speak at LoWEG, and hopefully there'll be others that follow, other allies that follow my footsteps as well going forwards. So I was going to talk to you a little bit about WISE now, and we're going to start off with a little video. For those that don't know, WISE it was our 40th birthday on the 17th of January. So we've got a little video to kind of talk about the history of WISE first.
And I want to help break the bias in STEM workplaces. Young girls can see what it's about. They can actually they can do it. It's not something that's beyond their realm.
I am one of the million.
I am one of the million.
So we can share the link to that video there, because that was some of the stats go quite quickly as well. But that's kind of a history of WISE from our inception in 1984 all the way through to today. And we are current, and this is us now. We're a business-to-business networking and services organisation, and we provide training and support to STEM organisations, both in academia and across various industries. And our purpose, obviously the reason why we exist, is to enable and promote the participation, contribution and success of women in the UK STEM workforce. Our vision is how we'll achieve that, and how we'll achieve that purpose. And that's via being the partner of choice to achieve parity for women in STEM, from classroom right the way through to the boardroom. And finally, our mission is how we'll go about kind of practically achieving that vision and therefore fulfilling our purpose. And we are going to do this by supporting our partners, our members, to achieve gender parity and benefit from better productivity, innovation and business performance, as we mentioned in the business case part of this talk earlier. The partnerships we have with our members will strengthen STEM sectors by championing diversity of thought, background and life experience, and thereby making STEM inclusive to all. And our mission will inspire every girl to envision a future in STEM, empower all women to enter, remain and progress in their STEM careers, lead our network of organisations to facilitate collaboration and amplify best practice, will support sharing insights and knowledge to help enable our partners to harness the benefits of diverse talent, again, that we touched on earlier, and ultimately create a sense of belonging for everyone in STEM. One of the main way we achieve this, and the vehicle for our work to achieve gender parity in STEM, is through our 10 steps framework. And the 10 steps is a framework that supports a holistic approach to attracting, progressing and retaining women in STEM. And any organisation with women in STEM roles is also can also be supported by the 10 steps. Now, all of the steps are equally important, and they all need to be focused on and implemented in an integrated way. The steps suggest there's like a starting step and an end step, and that's not strictly true. They all need to be worked on holistically to really achieve that organisational and cultural change. we kind of start, there's kind of a starting point, which is right at the top there, which says understand the starting point so you can monitor progress. That steps all around diversity data monitoring, the importance of data to diversity and inclusion, both for understanding where you currently are, where you want to be, and then kind of setting targets and tracking your progress against those objectives. There's kind of that last step as well, which is just to the left of that, share learning and good practice. When you are demonstrating good practice in specific areas of inclusion or gender diversity, what you really want to do is both position yourself as thought leaders in that space, but also bring others within your industry and outside industries in broader STEM along that journey as well, and inspire them to follow in your footsteps. So it's kind of a first and kind of a last step, but particularly the middle 8, as you can call them, they all need to be worked on in a really holistic, integrated manner. A good example of this is the step around demonstrating to women that you want to retain and develop them, which has elements of supporting returners in that step. If you think about how you're going to support returners, you need to make sure that your flexible working offering is really robust and progressive and easily accessible. You need to make sure that the leaders are supportive of the benefit of hiring returners and the value they can bring and the knowledge that they retain. You need to make sure that your progression opportunities aren't biased towards people who maybe need those flexible working arrangements, or are biased towards people who have come back, returned from a career break. And so just by focusing on that one, if we look at that one element of one step, you can see how it touches on various of the other 10 steps as well, and how they all need to be worked on in a coordinated manner to achieve real success. The framework also supports and promotes positive organisational performance, as it supports diversity and inclusion. It therefore helps you unlock the benefits of the business case brings. And finally, whilst WISE is kind of anchored in supporting women in STEM, and the 10 steps is a framework for gender parity, all of the steps and the framework itself is beneficial to wider diversity and inclusion as well. So working towards it is not just going to benefit women, it'll benefit everyone within the organisation. Each year, WISE runs a measuring progress event, which is an annual benchmarking event for the 10 steps, where members who have made a public commitment to implementing the 10 steps complete a diagnostic and submit their results. And we can see kind of year-on-year progression of those members, and also compare the results between our members as well, to see areas of high performance and areas of improvement as well. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, as part of that measuring progress event, or if an organisation wants to do kind of a deeper internal audit against the 10 steps, we have a surveying tool called the 10 steps diagnostic, which assesses maturity or performance against the 10 steps framework. It's made up of 5 questions for each of the 10 steps, so 50 questions in total. Every question can be answered either yes, partially or somewhat, no, or don't know, and that scores 2, 1, 0, and 0 respectively. Very important that no and don't know, although they score the same, they are 2 distinct answers, because they tell us very different things depending on what answer's given. And so this gives an overall score out of 100. Don't tend to use that because obviously it's quite a blunt measure. It doesn't really tell you where you're doing well. But where we really focus on is the step scores out of 10 and the individual question scores out of 2. And if you do the diagnostic, you get something that looks a little bit like this. So this is an example. This is an example from a mock example from a potential organisation that might have shared that diagnostic wide with all their employees. Got the results back, and these have then been averaged to give the scores for that organisation. And you get them organised kind of by score, kind of like ascending or descending. And then what we can use this for is to investigate kind of, okay, those scores near the bottom, why is that the case? We can do some more digging in the workshops that we run and work out why those scores are low and kind of what we can do to bring them up in the future. So as mentioned, the the 10 steps framework kind of structures everything that we do at Wise, and we have the diagnostic and workshop aligned to it and the measuring progress event. But the diagnostic, the framework, and in particular the diagnostic, really informs what training and support measures we might offer to our member organisations. All of the training and support measures that we offer are aligned to at least one of the 10 steps. So we have unconscious bias training, which is aligned to the change mindset step. We have an inclusive recruitment training workshop, which is aligned to the job design and inclusive recruitment step. And we're expanding our offering this year as well through the development of trainings with partner organisations and our own internally developed trainings. And we also run bespoke projects as well that are aligned to the 10 steps. So in the past, we've run inclusive leadership programs with member organisations, and we've also run investigations into barriers to progression within organisations too. The 10 steps also informs our events, and all of the events that we do are in some way aligned to the 10 steps as well. Our events cover issues that are kind of priorities for our members, and we're led by our member base in terms of the issues we cover in our events. And we have upskilling webinars, we have knowledge sharing events where we have breakout sessions to kind of discuss best practice between our member organisations. And of course, we have our one of our flagship events, which is the conference as well, which we have every year. So looking forward at Wise, as mentioned, we've got our suite of training and support measures. These are the ones that we currently offer, that we have ready to go. Intro to D&I, reverse mentoring, allyship, which is something that we've touched on today. So if you're looking for a way to structure allyship at your organisation and provide some upskilling to potential allies, like Wise can offer that. We also offer bespoke webinar packages, and we're going to be adding to this program of training and support measures throughout the course of this year as well. Next slide, please. We also have our My Skills, My Life tool, which is Wise's outreach resource that supports the recruitment of girls into the STEM subjects post-16. It involves a personality quiz that girls take in school. And based off their answers to that quiz, they get up to 3 personality types that are aligned to them. But not only do they get that, they also are provided with numerous real-world role models who also have those personality types. And we have a resource bank of over 1,000 role models now. And these are women at Wise member organisations who have provided us with information on their job role, what a day on the job looks like, their route to getting that job. And so it really provides women and girls in schools and colleges with that visibility of role models, and they can see that actually people like them have forged careers in STEM, and what those careers might look like for me as well. And finally, we've got our upcoming events. So on the 20th of February, we've got the Wise Awards, which we're really excited about. And then throughout the course of 2024, we're going to have 3 in-person knowledge sharing events to promote the sharing of best practice. We've got our CXO Roundtable event. We'll be marking International Women's Day and International Women in Engineering Day with special open access events, which we're really excited to be planning. We're also going to be marking World Menopause Day this year. And finally, something that's really important to mention is that at Wise member organisations, any employee at those organisations can have their own login details to the Wise member portal. And there you can access resources including case studies, articles on best practice, reports from various events that we've hosted, and meeting recordings as well where applicable. And that's accessible to any employee at a Wise member organisation. And the last thing to say from me is a massive thank you to both the audience, everyone coming along today and taking the time to listen to myself and our various speakers. Massive thank you to Donna and Gloria for coming along and talking to us about LoWEG. Massive thank you to the team from Air Products for coming along, and massive finally thank you to Gary as well. It's been really great. It's been great to hear the work that everyone's been doing, and fantastic work that LoWEG and Cadent and Air Products continue to do. And I hope everyone has a really fantastic rest of the day.
Thanks for having us, Jack.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Nice to talk. Bye-bye.
Thank you.